Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Andrew Steyer,
I'm Eric Martinez.
and today we are joined by a very fun guest, Frank Rivera.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you, Frank. We met Frank through improv. I was in Giggle Pants with him, and then Eric was in Giggle Pants and Snafu with him. He's very fun. He's very funny.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and today he brought Luca to play with us.
And you're mad about that, aren't you?
Yes. Okay,
So
no.
mad.
I'm flaming. It was me. It was me who made the poll on Twitter of like, can we even do this? Because I was like, I don't know that we can, because it's not explicitly gay, right?
Yeah, it's not. But
When I tell you, Andrew, when you watch this movie, you're gonna say that's the gayest thing I've ever seen.
On the way over here, I on the bus home, I told someone like, who's gay? I was like, oh, we're doing Luca tonight for our gay media. And he's like, oh, that's a good one. Like, no registration of like, is it gay? So it's like we're all on the same page. The Twitter poll, because I put it to a poll because I was like, let's see what people say, because I've never seen it also, so it's like hard for me to really know. But both on Instagram and on Twitter, the poll won that yes, we should do it. The options were, because the question was, is Luca gay? Should we cover it on the podcast sometime? And the options were no free clout, which I voted for, and yes, it's clear metaphor. And 75% of people voted yes. And it also went on Instagram. So the consensus is clear. So I got to see how gay this is. But it's also really interesting that it's like not explicitly gay. It's also interesting that this was released. It's a Disney Pixar film.
yeah,
And Disney has been in the news a lot in 2022 because of the Don't Say Gay bill. So it's like really, so what happened, like, just to catch you up on the story, is basically, as we've mentioned on this podcast before, and you've probably heard in the news, Florida has this awful Don't Say Gay bill where it's like, we don't want our children to even know what the concept of gay is while they're in school. We want it to be a dirty secret, which is obviously awful. And so Disney's employees were pushing Disney when this bill was coming up of like, hey, we need to release a statement. And then they did release a statement. And that statement said the best thing we can do to support gay rights is to come out with content. And everyone was like, what? Like, no, like actually like come out. So like they got the CEO got criticized for being not strong enough against the bill. And on top of that, Disney gives funds to companies that were sponsors of the bill. So Disney employees were so upset, and many people in the nation were upset that Disney's employees actually staged a walkout. And now the reason that I think I'm okay doing a Disney piece again is because they have since come out and publicly stated that they want to try and get the bill repealed. So it sounds like they're listening to these protests, which is great.
that is good. I mean, I think part of why I remember liking this movie was because like it was more, at least to me, I think it felt like it was in a way like normalizing gay, like representation in the media without having to be like, oh my god, like look, like it's so gay, like almost like that, like in a way like showing a more, like subtle or like delicate, space, like showing it in a more delicate or subtle way. And I think I remember that's what I liked about it, but I wonder like how much it actually is like clearly gay, like watching it now, like how much it'll seem that way at least.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
can
like
really.
it's so obvious. I'm like, the first time I watched that, I said gay, gay, gay. Like I was clocking so many things. I think I really like this movie because they're just trying to be obviously gay, but like for children, and just be like, look, like this is like what it is. And like they couldn't go like explicitly gay because it was like the main characters were children, which I like
Okay.
totally get.
No, that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
like when I tell you,
right, it's the sort of thing where like, I mean, if this were not a children's movie, like what what does it mean for it to be like explicitly gay? Like what are we gonna do? Like sit there and be like, what, you know, like, you know what I'm saying?
I want these kids to have sex.
Exactly. Like that's what I'm like. I mean, I guess, you know, it's like innocent. Like something can be gay and still like innocent, you know?
Yeah. And like if you had like a guy and the girl in the movie, people would be like, oh yeah, there's like definitely romantically involved, even if they didn't explicitly state it. I could also appreciate what you said about like it's kind of reminiscent of when there's movies that have like a really strong female protagonist or female heroine that's like really brave, and like some shows will be like, in this movie the woman is brave, which is like almost more sexist. Like just show us the movie.
Right.
So yeah, no, I totally get that point, but also it's like, okay, so I do want to talk about queer baiting. So queer baiting is when you aren't gay and you like kind of suggest that you are in order to capture the attention of gay people, and that whatever monetary success can come with that, even if you aren't. And also, queer baiting aside, this also kind of wraps in with like the idea of like this movie coming out and being gay, but also not wanting to identify with gay, because it wasn't promoted as a gay movie, right?
I don't think so.
But a lot of people saw the promo for it and started comparing it to a younger Call Me by Your Name, and I think that's where I got the impression that, and I think a lot of people like heard that as kind of like marketing, and like people were like, oh, it's gonna be like really gay, and then people come out of it and they're like, that wasn't like not really gay in like the Call Me by Your Name way, but it was still like the undertones were there, and that like you had to sort of understand it.
Got it. So I still want to talk about the issue that of not claiming something as gay when it is, and kind of rejecting or distancing yourself from that label, because if it is a gay movie, it really does not sound like it was claimed as such by the people who produced it. And why is that? And it's almost a shame. Like, as I said, there are some nice sides of it because you don't want it shoved down your throat, but you also wonder of like, were they being homophobic by not acknowledging any of that?
Right. No, I think you're right, because it is like a fine line there. You know what I mean? Like you're benefiting from telling this like clearly gay story, but yeah, at the end of the day, like you're refusing to explicitly label it as such. You know, like you're sort of taking one and leaving the other.
So I already warned these two that I wanted to discuss Harry Styles in this episode because it's really pertinent, because it's a very, very similar issue. So also Eric is a huge Harry Styles fan. So Harry Styles, there was like a story coming out that Harry Styles was calling labeling your sexuality outdated. And when I read that headline, I was like so upset, and also like so worried to bring it up with Eric, because I was like, are we going to fight about this?
So are you wanting? Oh, open the floor. Open the discussion.
In this corner.
Okay. So what's interesting is that, so I've actually gone into more research. Harry Styles did an interview with Better Homes and Garden, which is so random that like an interview in Better Homes and Garden with Harry Styles is what ended up like making waves, because like I saw it and I clocked it immediately is like, what? So Gay Times made a headline that kind of sensationalized it by saying like, Harry Styles says labeling his sexuality is outdated, or labeling your sexuality is outdated, which, and they quote outdated, and it's like the interview, the source interview doesn't actually say like what context he said the word outdated in, but it was certainly surrounding this discussion. And outdated may have been more referring to like the fact that people are so aggressively sometimes asking for his sexuality. And I can see like placing too much of like oh, are you gay, you know, like I can see, so it's like you have to be careful with the wording. But yeah, I had a reaction to that, and then immediately like people on Twitter were talking about it, so it's made some waves for sure. The crux of the article, like, or not of the article, but like this quote. I mean, it is worth saying he does say basically that he thinks we should come away from labels and shouldn't it be about the label, and but also, and he also said like my close friends know, and I shouldn't have to like talk about it beyond that, is kind of what he's saying, which I totally 100% respect people's right to come out of the closet on their own pace, in their own way, and just because they're a public figure doesn't mean they have to. Although it would be nice. It would be nice if he is gay, that if he came, or queer, that he came out, just because he would be such a great role model for so many like queer people. We could definitely use that representation. But yeah, and then like the other concern is if he is straight, because he's been doing things that are like trying on dresses, and it's actually sad, like one of the reasons he's like suspected for being gay is like waving pride flags, which is actually great. Like he's definitely presenting as an ally. So it's a shame that almost brings on this like almost antagonistic scrutiny against him. I'll also say in the article when I read it, like he doesn't come across as someone who's like rallying against labels, which is how I feel like it's kind of the message that's getting out there right now. But I mean, it does seem to be his point of view that like we don't need labels anymore. But yeah, the where the queer baiting comes in is because now he has like a large gay following, and some people like wondering if he is gay. The idea is that like, oh, you could be just pretending to be gay. It's almost like you're a closeted straight person now. You're pretending to be gay to capture the gay dollar. Yeah, so I have some thoughts on this idea of like we should come away from those labels. But first, I'd like to ask what y'all's thoughts are. Eric just gave me the most devilish grin before.
No,
I hope I didn't strike a chord. I know he loves
you did. Andrew, you did not strike a chord with me. I am not.
He is pissed. You should have seen the faces he was
raging.
I'm like, I can't believe you ever would say that to me. This is the last episode we do.
Oh no.
I feel no matter what, the way Harry Styles came into fame is people are going to call into question his sexuality, because he started out with fame with One Direction, and he started with like a teen girl following. And that was the primary fan of One Direction was like teenage girls who watched them come up on X Factor, and just naturally like in that boy band era, like all these teen girls, like that's just a natural thing. When like girls have a boy band, they like ship like the members together, and they want like the members to like be gay for each other. That bridges into like women and sexuality and gender. Like that is such a thing that like there is a whole study that haven't like even done that much reading on, but I know that like women love the idea of gay men being together, and that just is such a gender thing that like I would love to sit down with someone who actually knows all the details about that and hear everything. But I think because of sort of how he started out and how like the main like thing that he had in that group was like he was like that whole group was like all shipped together, and like all these teen girls wanted them to be together. But Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson were two members that like people were like, they are gay, and there's like hours of like footage of interviews and like photos of them, like people proving it. And so I think that has just like echoed out so far past his like time in One Direction that like it continues to become like a thing that's echoed to all of his fans. Like that I think is the basis that like people think. And because Harry during that time was so just like, love who you love, like it doesn't matter. Like he never like, he was the one explicitly who wasn't like really denying it at all. Louis was the one who was like, we are not gay. No one should ever say that. But Harry was kind of just like, it's whatever. Even if we were, it wouldn't matter. And so I think that's kind of why people like, he's just so nice, and it's just so like trying not to create any controversy whatsoever. but I think through his sort of like people pleasing of like just wanting to be like the nice person in the room, that it's kind of like people are like, so what is it, pal? Like, tell us. That being said, in regards to the outdating of labels, it's like I see both sides. Sexuality, specifically homosexuality, doesn't have one specific image. And so I feel like we've been built on this idea that homosexuality does have one specific image of how it's supposed to look. And I think what Harry's trying to say is that, like, I think what Harry's trying to say is that it's not that. Like, it can be being gay, being bisexual, being pansexual, being any kind of sexuality, all can look how it looks to you. And I feel like that's kind of what he's trying to say. I don't think he's trying to like dodge the idea and just dodge like telling people like what his sexuality is. I just think he wants to say that it doesn't look like anything. And like doesn't want to be like the face of like sexuality and the face of homosexuality, because it's like, no, like it can be anything.
I will say, if he is straight, I will be upset, not so much from a queer baiting point of view. Our friend Jefferson actually had a really good tweet, but basically saying like he's not explicitly profiting off of queerness right now. And so there's not really any reason he should have to come out. But if he is straight and he's like campaigning against labels, it feels like a little bit like fighting a battle that's really not yours to decide. And it's almost like maybe at least clarify that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking of. For me, it's like the labels thing. I think, it's all about the language that you use and your relationship with that. So for some people, that's really helpful. I would say that to me, like I really resonate with a label like that, but some people
Yeah.
don't, and for some people it's a lot more complicated than it is for me, and so like to describe their sexuality in one way or another is probably a lot more intimidating, especially when you're that famous. So I think if he is straight, saying like labels are outdated was, yeah, like not again, like that's not your fight necessarily to be going for, or like could have been worded a little bit better. But I think I agree with what you're saying, Eric. Like I feel like that's not what he was trying to say, like people that label yourselves like you're being outdated. I think he meant it more in the other way of, like labels probably aren't what does it for him.
So my issue with, and this isn't necessarily against Harry Styles, it's the idea in general, which he does seem to share, but also I want to share another interview, because this isn't the first time that a celebrity has been asked about his sexuality and made this kind of statement. And so there's this really interesting interview with Frank Ocean done by GQ, and earlier in the interview, they talk about his relationships with men and like kind of is coming out about that. And then he gets asked a question, so do you consider yourself bisexual? And his response is, you can move to the next question. I'll respectfully say that life is dynamic and comes along with dynamic experiences. And the same sentiment that I have towards genres of music, I have towards lots of labels. And basically goes on to say basically the exact same thing Harry Styles does, is like, don't put me in a box. And my objection with this, first of all, that interview response is much more aggressive than Harry Styles. Like, you can move on to the next question, like clearly irritated at the question. And that seems to be kind of like a sentiment, like we should push away from that, like from that being an important thing. And to me, I don't agree with that. I feel like you don't have to come out, but I also feel like objecting so hard to being associated with my community as a queer person. And also like, even if you, in Frank Ocean's case, he's like openly like queer, but doesn't want to accept a label associated with us. And for me, that doesn't sit right with me. And I feel like we should be fighting the stigma against the labels and not the labels themselves. I feel like the reason some people are afraid to adopt these labels. I mean, I know for me, it was very hard, even if like to say the words "I'm gay" when I first started doing it, just because I didn't identify with that stigma. I was like, that's not me, that's not who I am. I don't want to be associated with that image. which is terrible. And I had a lot of internalized homophobia to work through. And so it makes me sad to see people with such a big platform kind of push this message. Now, granted, I may have pushed the same message if I was coming out in the public eye, because it takes some time to work through that stuff. But I really hope that some of these celebrities that are starting to see who are queer or are still figuring out their sexuality can really one day start to like proudly proclaim themselves as queer or gay or bisexual or pansexual men. Obviously, like, come out at your own pace. I totally respect that, but I do think it'll do like a lot of help for the community to see these idols, and for also like straight people to see what queer people can do. They're all nodding in agreement with me. Everyone agrees with me. This is great.
I do.
With
I
that-
think. No,
You
go
go,
ahead.
Frank.
No, you go.
Frank, go. I was gonna say is that like I can't help but like with Frank Ocean. How old is he? I don't know. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know. How
Like,
old?
No, like
I feel like he
20s
yeah.
must be.
34.
I just feel like maybe Frank is just somewhere within the journey of his own sexuality, and maybe that was his way of just, I don't know. I feel like years from now, Frank will probably look at that interview and be like, huh, interesting, that was aggressive. Like, I don't know. We can't fault anyone for where they are in the journey if it's like, I guess it wasn't that Frank was like explicitly hurting anyone by saying that. I just can't. I feel like maybe somewhere down the line he'll like have a better take on it. I don't know. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
In a certain way, I do kind of relate to the idea of, I do think that having to come out is annoying in a way. I think for some people they take comfort in that, but for example, like to all the closest people in my life, my best friends, to both of you, for example, like I never came out to y'all. You know what I mean? Like I never, it was never like that.
And then all of a sudden we were inviting you on our gay podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And so in a certain way, I do like, if I had it my way, like for example, when I came out to my mom, I wouldn't have had to be like, mother, I'm gay. Like I would rather have not had it play out that way, just because I think like it feels somewhat like it's not natural to me, like to have to do that. You know what I mean? Like I feel like in a sense, I do think we should all just, however it is that you are, people should be okay with that, without you having to disclose that to them, but I do think that there is also a lot of, it gives you a lot of power to do that. And I think that by not, I still see it though somehow as like by not, I get what you mean, by not saying that label or like claiming that label, you are sort of like distancing or putting some distance, between yourself and the community in some way. And I do get why that sort of like feels weird at the same time.
Yeah, to me, there's just such a big difference between saying like, oh, I'm not, that's a personal question, and saying
Right.
there should never be a concept of a label. Like,
I always find it's so interesting having gay friends and hearing about everyone's sort of coming out stories, and how from gay person to gay person, like coming out was like its own level of intensity. Like I feel like mine, because I was raised Catholic, my coming out was I made it such a huge deal. But I've met so many friends before who were like, oh yeah, no, didn't care. And my parents were chill. And it's like just so
that's
jarring.
wild.
It's so jarring when like people treat, to me at least, from my own experience, when I meet someone who either like just isn't coming out because they're like, they don't feel the need to, or they just are like, yeah, it's whatever. Like, I don't know. I wonder if with this situation with Frank, maybe he's just is like, no, it's whatever, I don't care.
Right.
I just want to bring up one more news story because it's tangentially related, but it's so to me it's really really funny. Is that did y'all hear about Misha Collins?
Yes.
For anyone who hasn't, poor guy. Misha Collins plays a gay character on TV or a queer character on TV.
No, he's not queer in that show.
Oh, is he not? I thought he's is he not queer? He doesn't play a queer
Supernatural?
character in anything.
In Supernatural?
Oh, I thought he played a queer character.
No, like that's the whole, I think part of what makes it the whole thing is that like for so long, like people thought like we're shipping his character and this other character together, but they weren't gay. Like it wasn't like that.
So he's not even canonically the character. That's so funny.
No, yeah.
Anyway, at a speech, he made the most ridiculous blunder where he asked like, who's an introvert, who's an extrovert, who's bisexual, and then he said, I'm all three. And then like the next day, all these articles came out in like these gay newspapers being like, oh, proud moment, Misha Collins comes out as gay or as bisexual. And he had to like clarify, he's like, sorry, no, that I'm not. But his apology was so good. He was like, I would never want to. He doesn't use the word queer bait, but he basically says, I would never want to queer bait. Like I'm not that. That's not my struggle. But I'm still a great ally. He's like, hands down, like best apology you could ask for. But still, like
I'm still a great ally.
I think that's what made just like that's I think why I noticed it was because I remember like being, like 2012 Tumblr and everyone was like writing, I swear, like libraries worth of fan fiction over these like over Misha Collins being gay. And then like all these years later that happening, it was just like that's just crazy.
It's fun to imagine an alternate reality where he just ran with it.
He's like, yeah, totally. And then he finds out he actually is. He's like, actually, yeah, I do like this.
Okay, we have our next movie plot sorted out. All right, enough with the serious stuff. Let's talk about Luca.
Luca.
So you already mentioned that like everyone saw the trailer and immediately just started like making it gay. That's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, it's two young boys in Italy, so of course all the Call Me By Your Name stands lost their damn minds, and they're like, and Leo and Oliver, they were young.
Aww.
I think there's something about just also like, I mean, like Mediterranean men be like that sometimes.
What Mediterranean men be like that?
I mean, that's what happened in freaking Call Me By Your Name and what was the other one? Oh, like the Song of Achilles. They're Greek in that one too. It's all Mediterranean.
We love men standing by the ocean.
Something about the Mediterranean Sea.
Guess I gotta move to Greece. Damn. Mommy, a Grecian. This movie actually came out really recently. It just came out last year.
Oh, this was last year. See, time moves so weirdly.
Yeah. And but I have okay, so I haven't seen this movie, so I'm going in completely blind. I've done zero research. But when I went to look up what year it came out, it got like a really good score on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's like pretty well received.
Okay.
I think that people generally liked it a lot. Like it's really well done. It's very sweet. It's just this, and it's kind of a simple premise. I feel like it's not too. They don't try to make it too difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it is a children's movie. I feel like I think that's part of what makes it like good in a way.
Also, I think Pixar just has like their house name. Like people are gonna be like, yeah, I'm there, and like they can do sort of anything, and people are like, yes, 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 we love it.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited to watch it. I mean, Pixar like does consistently great work, so it's good. It's good to hear that this is apparently no exception.
I remember when after I watched it for the first time, a friend of mine who is not gay watched it and was like, I don't get how this is gay. And I was like, you weren't looking. Like, so I think it's like, I think it's one of those things where it's like, you know, the water you don't know you're swimming in, you know, like if you're gay, like you can tell, but
Snaps, Frank.
he's not.
Bitch, time to sink or swim.
Andrew, you're like a siren or a shark chumming the water. I don't know which one.
Oh my God.
I'm a frog. Thank you very much. Andrew, I cannot wait for us to hop on to the other side of having watched it and for you to be like, that wasn't gay.
Oh.
I would love if that was your take.
I'm like, what? Those are just bros. Those are just bros being bros, yo.
I think that, yeah, I guess, I don't know. I feel like everyone's been in that place before where it's like, it's also like hard to tell, like, are you gay or are you not too? So I feel like I feel like gay men know how to walk that line. So I feel like I don't know. I feel like you'll think it's.
I wish we could have, there's no way we could have gotten you to watch this movie for the podcast without telling you that like it's remotely gay. Like I wish it was just you and I'm like, Andrew, let's sit down and watch a movie. I'm telling you nothing about it. And then like see sort of like, was that gay to you?
Okay, wait. I will say one thing, because I don't think I really heard much talk about this movie, but I remember like watching the trailer preview and being like, is this a gay movie? And I was like kind of excited. I was like, oh my God, are they making a gay movie? And I was like so ready for it. And I was like, oh no, it's not, because like it, you know, it didn't ever say it was, but apparently that didn't stop people from celebrating it as one, just like Harry Styles. All right, should we swim in these waters?
Let's swim in these waters.
Let's take a swim in these waters.
Breaststroke.